Hello and welcome to Food for You and the Planet, a fresh new podcast that explores healthy and environmentally sustainable food solutions. This podcast is brought to you by Healthy Plant Eat Online Farmers Market. I'm Dr. Rosemary Ostfeld and I'm your host. Together, we'll hear from leaders in environmental science, agriculture, medicine, nutrition, entrepreneurship, and more. Today's episode features Elizabeth Whitlow, Executive Director of the Regenerative Organic Alliance. Elizabeth has been working in the field of organic agriculture for over 20 years. She began her career as an advocate for shade-grown, fair trade, and organic coffee growers in Central America. Since then, she has worked across the spectrum of elevated certifications, both in farming and ranching, earning high-level placements with organizations such as CCOF and EarthClaims. Her greatest honor is to serve a planet that is in tremendous need of each and every one of us. Thank you so much for being here today, Elizabeth.
Rosemary, it's great to see you again. Thank you for inviting me. I know we had planned to do this in person when we saw each other at the Eco Farm gathering in Asilomar a couple weeks ago, but we were both quite busy and it was really hard to find any time to get together, but I'm really grateful for this opportunity to join you and to talk about the work we're doing at the ROA and just to engage with you because it's been really fun the last couple of years. Really, we've been chatting and watching your journey and seeing the work you're doing is very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Awesome. So let's start out with what is Regenerative Organic Alliance and what type of work does it do?
Yeah, the Alliance is an alliance of different nonprofits and companies, different stakeholders from the organic sector who came together at the Rodale Institute. You've also had on your podcast, so Rodale Institute in Pennsylvania about 6 years ago. And this was Dr. Bronner's Patagonia, Rodale, Compassion in World Farming, Fair World Project, other stakeholders and experts in the field of organic, of social justice, and of animal welfare. They wanted to kind of craft a vision for the future of agriculture. They had some concerns. These had been longtime supporters of organic and continue to be big supporters for organic agriculture, but also felt like there were some, there's been concerns and issues with some of the organic regulations here in the US, and they wanted to kind of get out ahead of this and create this vision for the future of agriculture. And so they called it Regenerative Organic Certified. And they invited other stakeholders to the table and they created a framework or a standard for Regenerative Organic Certified as a new kind of umbrella program that would help bring this to market so that consumers would know that there's this one kind of super seal that would address all the concerns they bring with them when they go shopping. And we can dive into more particulars on the standard itself whenever you want. I can just give a quick highlight. It's like a lens. We have 3 different lenses. We look through soil health and land management, animal welfare, and then social justice. So in other words, fairness for farmers and farm workers.
How is Regenerative Organic Certification similar or different from USDA Certified Organic? What are some of the key differences?
So we require organic certified as the baseline. That is like the ticket to entry, and because we think organic is the best program out there. It eliminates synthetic pesticides and fertilizers and GMOs and radiation and all those things. And there's really, with organic, there are a lot of opportunities for farmers to really express the ways that they manage their land in a way to build healthy soil. However, there is an allowance in the US for hydroponics, and we do not allow any hydroponics in our program because we believe that regeneration of this planet starts with the earth and the soil. And so that's why we have a really keen focus on how the farmers are building soil health. And we have very proactive kind of requirements for farmers to move along from like bronze, silver, gold to incorporate more and more methods to show how they're building healthy soil as they go through our program. But even at the bronze level, it's pretty elevated kind of requirements for the soil health pillar. And just to list a few of those, what farmers need to demonstrate is that they are keeping the ground covered and they're minimizing the soil disturbance. And that's a really key component of building healthy soil, is minimizing the disturbance to the soil and sequestering carbon into the soil, leaving living roots in the ground whenever possible, and if not, to leave mulch to protect the soil and perform a sort of an armor, a protective coating over the soil to prevent it from eroding or washing away in the wind or the rain. And we also require that there are a more proactive approach to crop rotations. So you have to have at least 2 crop rotations before you come back to the cash crop. And so that helps ensure that there's diversity and that the soil has time to recover in between harvests. We also really encourage bringing animals back to the farm and incorporating animals in a way that helps build healthy soil through holistic grazing practices, for example. We have other requirements in our soil health pillar that are above and beyond organic, where, for example, no deforestation. Before 2015, the farmers have to show that they have not converted that land from pristine land, whether it's forest or even peat and things like that. So you have to really show that this land has not been converted. And also another interesting one is around no fracking, no mineral extractions on the land that is in the Regenerative Organic Certified program. There's other areas of the soil health pillar. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole. The animal welfare one, this is another area of concern in the federal law for organics. We've got a lot of very industrial sized livestock operations, and in poultry is the most egregious, where poultry operations can make claims for organic, but those chickens never really get outside to forage and peck and be outside on pasture or in the forest or in the forage, because they live in these really big houses and they have little doors that let them go outside, but concrete patios are eligible to be called access to the outdoors. So it's really not a great environment conducive to that particular breed's kind of natural inclination to be forage and pecking and dust bathing. And so there is a new rule going into place to improve the organic law on that, but it's, producers have years to come into compliance with that. So in the meantime, we've got the ROC program, the Regenerative Organic Certified. Animal welfare ensures that ruminants are on pasture, that animals have the ability to express their natural behavior, and they have a freedom from other types of from stress and hunger, and that they are able to live their lives outdoors as nature intended. And we also have very strict rules on transport and processing of those animals to make sure as humane as possible. And I believe you also had Compassion in World Farming on your podcast, and they've been deeply involved in our work. And in fact, one of their technical staff, Dr. Hillary Daltons, is the chair of our Animal Welfare Committee and brings a lot of expertise to the table to help us ensure that our animal welfare principles are really in line with how ranchers are approaching raising livestock, but also to do it in the most humane way possible. And our third pillar is that social fairness, and that's not addressed at all in organic, and it never would be. It's, the National Organic Program is overseen by the USDA, not by anyone who's looking at labor practices. And so we really look closely at labor and how farm workers are being treated, and ensuring they have safe working conditions, that they have the ability to unionize or to file a grievance without fearing retribution, that women and and men don't experience harassment, and sexual harassment in particular is a really deep rooted problem for women who work in the fields. 8 out of 10 farm workers who are women experience sexual harassment. And so those are some of the protective kind of mechanisms we have built into our social fairness pillar. Another really important one is living wage. And it's shocking how hard it is to get to earning a living wage and for farmers to pay a living wage. But it's a really important one because we need stable communities. If we don't have stable communities, farm workers comprise a community, and they need to be able to have a sustainable livelihood, or it'll come out in other ways and it'll cost the community in other ways. And so those are some of the central tenets. And the final area that I think is really fascinating and I've seen such great impact is that we have a buyer's criteria. So any brands who are using the Regenerative Organic Certified claim on pack means they have shown us they're paying a premium to the farmers. They're signing long-term contracts whenever possible, and that they're helping to stabilize the smallholder farmers they work with, or just providing stability to the farmers they're buying from through long-term contracts. So those are some of the core differences between Regenerative Organic Certified and Organic Certified.
Yeah. So why is it important to have USDA Certified Organic as a foundation for Regenerative Organic Certified? Like, why do we need to have USDA Certified Organic like as that base?
Well, you may have, that's really a $1 million question right now. It's being hotly debated in a lot of circles and a lot of conversations happening in this area. I think, there's been a lot of recognition of the beautiful gains that a farmer can have when they incorporate regenerative practices. And so we want all farmers to get on board and move along the line of incorporating more regenerative practices so that they can be more resilient, and so they can sequester more carbon, and they can also sustain these extreme weather events that we have now with climate change, making it harder and harder to farm because there's these like atmospheric rivers that sit on top of a region and cause a lot of flooding, or intense droughts, intense heat waves. And these are things that make farms really vulnerable. But what we have seen, and what I'm sure Dr. Smith spoke about from Rodale, is how much more resilient those farms are when they build the soil organic matter. The plants are far more resilient, and the land can not just sequester carbon, but when you've got carbon, you've got all this kind of area in the soil and that soil microbiome that it creates airspace, and it allows for that land to capture more water and absorb more water. And those farms that we are working with, and we are seeing the evidence every year, they're more resilient during heat waves because they've got more water in the soil. And it's each 1% increase in soil organic matter equates to 25,000 gallons more water stored per acre. And so it's like a giant living sponge instead of just like a dead, like a piece of cardboard. So it expands and it holds the water, and it makes a big difference when there's a lot of water, and it makes a big difference when there's no water. So I hope that makes sense. Also, the soil microbiome is more, the soil microbiome is very susceptible to tillage, to chemicals, to herbicides, to fertilizers. Those destroy the soil microbiome. And what we've learned in just a short amount of time in this rapidly emergent field is that, first of all, there's more than 8 billion living beings in 1 teaspoon of healthy soil. Okay, that's more humans than are on the planet. And we've only identified, of those living organisms, we've identified about 15% of them. It's where we extract a lot of our modern medicine. And it's where we've learned that really vital exchange of nutrients happens from the plant roots into that soil, because the soil microbiome is the friend there. They're the ones who are moving, like they're actually what it is. I'm sorry if it gets a little technical. And our friends at Kiss the Ground do a great job of explaining this, of the carbon cycle. Photosynthesis happens and the leaves convert sunlight, and this beautiful alchemy, this magic. They take the sunlight, they turn it into sugar, goes into the xylem of the plant, it goes down into the roots, and it pushes through the root hairs as it emerges as exudate, they call it, as you know, you're a scientist. So it's like this sticky kind of mucilaginous substance that is what feeds the soil microbiome. And the soil microbiome, the plant roots cannot access the nutrients from the soil. They can't break down those essential nutrients they need from the clay or from the minerals in the soil. The microbiome is what's breaking that down. So they take the exudates and they go in exchange. They bring the plant roots what the plant root needs. And there's all this amazing communication happening between those interactions. And so that's some of the most exciting work that's happening right now, is showing that how important it is to preserve the soil microbiome. So if you till it, you're crushing it, you're killing, you're tearing up the very life on which you depend. If you apply herbicides, you're destroying it. If you apply fertilizers, you are destroying it. And so we need to not use chemicals in order to regenerate the soil. And so farmers, like, they're certainly learning this, and it takes a while to get off the chemical treadmill. So farmers really need a lot of encouragement to incorporate more and more regenerative practices and ease them along as they move along that trajectory to eliminating the use of pesticides and chemicals. But that is really the end goal, is to get to organic and regenerative. So hope that wasn't too lengthy of an explanation.
That was great. So how does Regenerative Organic Certified differ from other certifications that may use the word regenerative in their title, or the phrase that some large corporations, they're now using the phrase regenerative, but they might not have gone through the process of becoming Regenerative Organic Certified? So what are some of the differences and things that consumers should be aware of when they hear this term, and how rock is something separate than just like a phrase?
Yeah, I'd say first off, follow the money. So if you see that, like, Syngenta is behind some moves towards bringing in more, using this word regenerative, and this is through like a bioengineering and making, using GMOs and technology, yet calling it regenerative because they have a different idea of what regenerative is. And so it's like, how are we all going to come to an agreed upon definition on regenerative? It's a hot topic right now in California, where I live. The California Department of Food and Agriculture has very bravely forged forth into defining regenerative, which was a big concern to us when we first learned about it last year. And in fact, the California Department of Food and Ag, the Secretary of Agriculture here, invited me to come and present to the Food and Ag Board our position on this, which was a huge honor. And apparently it got their attention because they then formally invited me to join the task force on defining regenerative. And we had our first meeting this week. A lot of experts in the field in that room. And I think, we've got a lot of work ahead of us to define regenerative in a way that's going to work for everybody. There's competing interests. There's people who really want regenerative to remain something that does not require organic, but does require incorporating regenerative practices. And it's a really fine line there. We don't want to exclude farmers ever. We don't want to vilify farmers. We want to help farmers. There's a lot of programs here in the state of California that produces a lot of the nation's food. Let's not forget, we're like the world's 7th largest economy. So we're not just talking like small potatoes here. There's a lot at stake. And there's a lot of organic farming that happens here in California. So there's some very heavily interested stakeholders at the table who are taking part in the conversations. And there's a lot of new certifications for regenerative out there. 5, I think. And some of them, some of them will allow GMOs. Some of them, you can also allow, like, you're saying no till, but you're using Roundup to terminate your cover crop, is a practice that may be allowed for some of these other certifications. So we at the ROA, we draw our line on organic. We believe firmly in using organic approach before you start calling something regenerative, because we're concerned that there will be this rush to the market. Regenerative is a really hot new term. And 6 years ago, if you'd asked me that, I would not have believed you because it was hard to say. A lot of people weren't saying it. It was not on the tips of everyone's lips, but tongues. But now it is. I'm hearing it a lot. There's tremendous growth in that market, and it's it's having its day. And I'm really worried that it will go the way of sustainable or natural. And these are unregulated terms that don't have any meaning anymore. As Jeff Moyer, one of our founders, former CEO of Rodale, says, like, if it means something to everyone and everything to everyone, it means nothing to anyone in the end. And so you have to set high standards. If you don't set high standards, then you're going to land at a really low bar place. So the ROC, the Regenerative Organic Certified Standards we set a high standard as an aspirational kind of North Star guiding light. Originally, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Nobody's going to make this. It's going to be really tough. We went through our pilot program and we changed the standard. We had to make it more accessible in some areas. And we are growing by leaps and bounds, Rosemary. We're at 6 million acres, and I'm going to bet we double it this year. And last year, I was pushing really hard to get to 1 million acres by the end of the year. I thought that was a huge goal. We got to 5.8. So we're doing great. We have a lot of leading farmers who are showing it can be done. And we have amazing brands who are standing at the door ready to buy up their crops and pay a premium and bring the product to market. And so now we need consumers to start to really understand how to differentiate. And I believe the key to this whole thing is going to be what we unlock is around nutrient density. Nutrient density is another phrase that is, like, maybe in 5 years we'll think it's funny that we didn't find that a very sexy phrase. Maybe everybody will be talking about nutrient density in a few years, but when you do some of the research and you see one leaf of this kind of spinach equals 50 leaves of this spinach, or 1 carrot equals 50 carrots here, that's going to start to show up in the market, and people will buy the carrot that is a little more expensive if they only have to buy 1 instead of 50 of those. And it's already happening. There's some really great efforts. There's some scientists up in your neck of the woods who are looking at this. And I'm really optimistic that the research, what is showing now, is going to keep showing. Rodale also is doing this work. And so I think looking at nutrient composition of food grown in healthy soil, grown in regenerative organic soil, is going to be far superior to food that's grown in a depleted soil. And it makes sense logically, but we need the science to prove it.
So what are some of the steps a farm must take to become Regenerative Organic Certified?
Well, like on the ground steps, you mean, or just like functionally getting to the
I
certification?
guess, yeah, like functionally, like, maybe there's a farm that doesn't have any certifications yet. Like, what would they do if they wanted to just start this path towards becoming Regenerative Organic Certified?
Yeah, I would say start with getting organic certified. And there's a lot of money coming out of the USDA right now. You're probably familiar with the TOP program and Strengthening Organic Enforcement Program, where there's more and more money. I think it's $300 million that's going to help farmers move into regenerative or into certified organic. And cost share program exists that most farmers don't even know this exists. I remember when I worked at CCOF for 16 years here in California, and we were always telling people, look, you can get cost share. It'll pay for 75% of your certification. So a lot of people say, oh, organic certifications, it's too expensive, it's too much paperwork, it's too burdensome, it's too prescriptive. Those are all words coming from people who haven't done it. And I can tell you 100 times over how many times I've gone through this with farmers, gone through like, okay, here's the one piece of paper you need to fill out to get your organic cost share. Just write in your name, write your operation number, give a copy of your certificate, and share your invoice from your certifier, and you're going to get up to $750 per scope from the state or the federal government, depending on where you live. Like, that is so easy. It's laughable that someone complains. Most certification isn't going to cost a farmer more than, $1,000 or $1,200 maybe. I don't know. It just really depends on the complexity of the farm and where they're located and who their certifier is. But $750 will go a long way to cover your cost. people who say it's too much paperwork, it's too burdensome. Well, hey, I'm sorry, but keeping good records is essential in this world. And if you're not keeping records of what you're applying out there, and you're not saving the receipts and to look back over the year and be like, oh, wow, I spent this much money on this particular organic input, this compost, or this organically approved, there's biopesticides, there's things that are used like rosemary and orange oil to use for controlling weeds, or vinegar, or whatever. Like there's tools out there for farmers. There's plenty of tools in the organic tool chest now for farmers to use to control for different types of pests that cultural practices don't seem not to be helping with. But I think a lot of these regenerative practices are really proving it's so amazing what's happening. Like, just look at the roller crimper. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I think it's a really great tangent because you spoke with Andrew, and I hope he talked about the roller crimper. And this is a way where farmers can plant, and they can get money for cover crop seeds now from the USDA and from their state ag agency. They get money to put cover crops in at the end of the harvest season. They'll grow some cover crops that will protect their soil, will build the soil organic matter, and that will prevent weeds from coming in. And the next year they can, or at the right time of year for that particular location, they use a roller crimper, and that'll crimp down this crop. It bends it over, crimps it, and then it becomes like a living mulch, or a dead mulch, that helps keep moisture in the soil and prevents weeds from coming. And so those farmers don't need organic herbicides, and they don't need to do as much manual labor for controlling for weeds because they're using this mulch. And it's amazing how effective it is and how well it keeps moisture in the soil and keeps more weeds from coming up. So that's just one example.
I think it's important that people understand that the organic certification is like the foundation for ROC, and that it's possible to become organic certified. And there are these programs that can help people do it affordably and in a way that isn't burdensome. And I think that's really important for people to understand.
It is. And I missed your the little gift you gave me of how do people get Regenerative Organic Certified. So I don't have to be a salesperson in this job. I can tell you that we are just trying to service the demand that's at our door. We don't go out looking to bring people in because we're a small team and we're handling who's at the door now. But to get Regenerative Organic Certified, you would get organic certified, and ideally you do it with a certifier who also offers Regenerative Organic Certification. And we work with 15 certifiers around the globe. We're offering services in over 90 countries. And you want to bundle the audit. So you do one audit in one day, and you don't have to separate it out and do it twice, and maybe potentially have 2 different auditors come out. So if you're wanting to get ROC, go to our website at Regen Organic, go on the Get Started page and start working through the application, and then ask my amazing team for help if you have questions. There's lovely people by my side who help me do this work every day and love to help farmers. And they are, I have a tendency to hire farmers. And so we have a lot of farmers who are on our staff, and also oftentimes farmers become organic inspectors. So a lot of them worked as organic inspectors in the past or worked in that organic sector. So they're there to help.
Awesome. Could you share an example or two of a regenerative organic certified farm, either here in the United States or internationally, that you feel is doing some really great work, and maybe some of the practices that they're using?
Yeah, gosh. I could talk to you for an hour about this if you ever want to do another podcast. And I would bring show and tell photos and food. We've got some brands and who are working with farms. So like there's some vertical integration that's happening too, where I'll give 2 examples domestically. We've got like Oatman Farms Ranch in the Southwest, farming in a desert. And then we've got the Lundberg family farms, who are farming in an area that is heavy clay soil, not that suitable for farming, but their family many generations ago learned how to grow rice in these environments like they do in Japan, where they really provide incredible habitat for migratory birds and all kinds of species that depend on the water. So two very polar opposites, but you can look at both of their websites and see what they're doing. And then they're both bringing food to market to feed humans. And I want to emphasize that because many of the farmers in our country are like have this idea that they're supposed to feed the world, but what they're producing by and large is GMO corn and soy that goes to ethanol, that goes to feed livestock in other countries, and that goes to processed food that is like processing ingredients from corn that help make us sick. They're helping be a nation of people with obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. So we want to look at growing food that feeds humans, healthy, nutrient-dense food. Oatman Flats grows this heirloom wheat that they sell to this guy, Chris Bianco, who has a bunch of restaurants, and he's kind of credited with bringing European-style pizza to America. There's a Netflix series that features him. And you can actually see a glimpse of the farm there. These guys are farming in many regenerative ways where they're keeping the soil covered. They're building soil organic matter and retaining moisture in the soil, which is critical when you're farming in a desert. So you'd have to go to their website to learn more, but there was a monsoon last year. Their neighbor's soil was ripping off the farm in the wind and running down the road. You can see videos that they took. They just pan over to the left and then to the right. Their farm has full cover crops, diverse cover crops, and the water is just seeping into the soil, seeping into the groundwater. And later on that season, when there was a heat spell, their farm did fine. Their neighbor, total crop loss. It's happening here in the vineyards in Northern California as well. We have a lot of amazing vineyards doing this work. Terra, Gurgitch, Gundlach, like I could, Tablas Creek, there's so many. We probably have 20 vineyards. So those are some of the farms. And then internationally, in Australia, we have an amazing partnership going on with this Hewitt Ranches, and they're bringing really vast tracts of land on that they are regenerating, and they're doing a lot of study of the land and the benefits of regenerative with the largest of its kind study in Australia to show the benefits of regenerative practices on biodiversity and on soil health and on capturing and holding on to water in an area where water is really precious commodity. So it seems like it's always coming down to water, and I think that will be more and more apparent as we continue to experience climate change and these extreme events of climate.
So I have one more question for you. So what do you see as the future for the Regenerative Organic Certified movement, and how can people become involved and support it?
Well, I mean, my future dream would be that we can see ROC, the ROC logo all over the place, and not just at Whole Foods, Sprouts, and natural food stores. Because right now, that's where you can find our products at natural food stores. PCC Markets is up in the Northwest is going to be carrying a lot of them. I hope to move more into like the independent grocers in your region, so consumers can just go out and buy that readily at the store. I'd love to see it trickling into the farmers markets and into the regional food movement. That would require more support, I think, because regional producers of food, oftentimes people shopping at a farmer's market know they're farmers, so they don't really need a seal or certification to see what that farmer is doing, right? But consumers can get involved by going to our website, learning more, reading about this, supporting. Send us money if you want to. We're a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit, and we're a really small team. And so we'd love support in that way, but mostly I want you to support those farmers and ask the hard questions. If you see other regenerative certifications, ask the hard questions. How do they think use of chemicals is regenerative? And how is that regenerating life on Earth? How is that helping heal the planet and keeping people healthy? We know Roundup causes cancer. Monsanto is suffering lawsuit after lawsuit on this. And just like you and I were talking about pre-show, like it's this whole idea of silent spring and what we're doing to wipe out the biodiversity on this planet and its life that we all depend on this. And so how to support it is, I think, really key in just educating themselves on this topic.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining this episode of the podcast. It's been awesome to have you. And yeah, I just love how passionate you are about the Regenerative Organic Certified movement. And thank you for sharing everything about the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary, Dr. O. It's really great to chat with you, and just I wish you all the success with this podcast and spreading the word, because your passion also is always clear to me, and you come to it from such an informed place and have so much potential to make impact with all the lives you touch in your work. So thank you for that.
Thank you.